Hey everyone, we are back. It has been a while. It was good to hear that music again.
I was ready to line dance.
It's been a couple months, but like I said, we're back. The Zzzax of Life podcast, a Marvel podcast presented by Laughing Place, episode number 88. All right, sorry, breaking the fourth wall here, which is fitting for a Deadpool episode. As if you're watching live, you're seeing this. If you're listening later on, you're not. Kyle's shirt is provided by Roosevelt's. I didn't even realize that is a Roosevelt's. Kyle, what is that?
This is one of their breakfast balls polos. So you'll see there's a couple of, it's not a Marvel one, it's Star Wars, but you got a couple lightsabers there. And then there's some design on the collar and the button part.
Cool. They have some really cool polos too, actually.
They're very comfy, just like the Kunu flexes. Yeah. So while I'm at a convention and interviewing people and trying to look just somewhat professional while being nerdy, that is why I'm wearing this shirt. As I have now disclosed to you, they have given it to me. So thank you.
Well, and speaking of the convention, what are you doing right now? Where are you?
I am in Indianapolis, Indiana at Gen Con, which is like a tabletop gaming and role play game and trading card game, all that sort of gaming, except for video gaming. There's maybe a little bit of that, but not really. But the reason, so we came to this, or I came to this for the first time last year when they debuted Disney Lorcana, and they sent me back this time. There's a couple other things. There are a couple Marvel things. There's a cool shot of one of the staircases sponsored by Marvel Comic Hunters, which is, I guess, is a board game. There's also, they just debuted a new, I think you're a little bit familiar with it because you have the Deadpool and Wolverine one shot, but it's a Marvel role-playing game. They just released an expansion that's all X-Men. So I was checking that out. And then, yeah, there's a few other Disney things happening around here. So it's pretty cool. It's what's nice about this area. There's a reason that the Combine is here, and it's because the Lucas Oil Stadium is connected to the convention center, which is then connected to pretty much every hotel within however many mile radius. So I never have to step outside.
Oh, that is nice. I didn't realize that. That's pretty cool. So yeah, Kyle is there in Indianapolis. I am home, but I did, well, I guess a few days ago at this point, get back from San Diego Comic-Con, which is what we're going to be discussing today. So we're not going to have our normal format today. We are going to first catch up on about 2 months worth of news, hopefully pretty quickly. And then we'll discuss all of the news that came out of San Diego Comic-Con. And then we will break down Deadpool and Wolverine. There will be spoilers. We'll have the banner up if you're watching live. If you have not seen the movie yet, what are you doing? Go see the movie. So as long as that banner is up, we'll be discussing Deadpool and Wolverine spoilers. But let's go ahead and, like I said, catch up on 2 months worth of news because our last episode was on the finale of X-Men 97 back in May. So we've got some catching up to do. I'll kind of breeze through some of these things pretty quickly. I'll throw in some thoughts here and there. Kyle, if you have anything you want to add, just stop me. But let's jump back to the beginning here. So in late May, we learned that we are, in fact, going to be getting that Vision series that we heard a little bit about, and that'll be coming in 2026. As of right now, I don't think we have an official name, and based on what Marvel has been doing, the name will change 6 times anyway. So
I already forgot that was happening, honestly. You said it right now.
Yeah, so Vision coming in 2026. We got a trailer for Venom: The Last Dance. Yeah, that is the name of the movie.
Forgot that happened too.
Yeah, I don't know if we had the name already. I think we probably did, but
I took that personally.
Yeah, you're right, because we did make that joke already. So yeah, we did have that name. The trailer is out. I am ready for this franchise to be finished. Jan Demange, the director of, was supposed to be the director of Marvel's Blade, has stepped away from the project. So that project just continues to lose creative minds. So we'll see what happens there. We might mention that again in a little bit with our discussion of the film coming up. Doctor Strange and the Mysteries of the Mystic Arts, the show at Avengers Campus in Disney California Adventure, is no more. That has ended. I haven't seen anything. Are they doing anything with that area? Have you seen anything about that, Kyle?
I don't think so. So I've only ever been to Avengers Campus during Oogie Boogie Bash. So right. I didn't get the full experience. But yeah, this was part of a few different entertainment cuts.
Yeah.
Of course, they kind of added one, which we'll get to. So that's a plus side. But yeah, so that show is closed. I never got a chance to see it. But that was kind of one of their ways when they debut these new characters. That was one of the ways that they would sometimes bring those characters into the land, was via that show. But there are
Yeah.
other options, as we've seen.
I would assume they're using the area just for like Doctor Strange meet and greets right now. It is one of the coolest areas of the park, especially at night, to take pictures. It's awesome. So highly recommend checking that out, even though the show is no longer there. Jumping to Disney Cruise Line, we did find out that the Worlds of Marvel restaurant on the Disney Treasure will be getting a Guardians of the Galaxy themed show. So as opposed to the Quantum.
Well, not as opposed, actually, in addition to.
Oh, it's going to cycle through,
so
right?
The Treasure is going to have longer itineraries, so 7 days. So
Right.
as part of your dining rotation, you'll actually do both shows. But I believe the Destiny is going to have just the Guardian show, at least for now.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about the Destiny. We got a lot of news on that new ship too. But continuing to go down the list here, Letitia Wright, who plays Shuri in the MCU, did tease the return of Shuri. Not sure. She didn't say anything about what project. She just said stuff is coming up. There's a lot of stuff, planned.
I'm sure we will see her again.
Eyes of Wakanda is a series that we have in the works. So it's possible she's mentioning or she's referencing that. But I also
possible it's in the can too. Like they've been shooting these things. Like we've had Ironheart's just sitting there waiting.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. So it's possible she's already filmed her next appearance. But yeah, I also expect her to have a bigger role in some of the big team up movies we've got coming up in the future as well. Kevin Feige. So we got the debut of the new official Marvel podcast. Have you gotten to listen to that at all, Kyle?
I haven't.
So it's weekly episodes. They're roughly 15 to 25 minutes, I'll say. They're pretty short. Each episode does feature a pretty interesting interview with somebody, high up in Marvel. The first episode was Kevin Feige. And he talked a little bit about Fantastic Four, which we'll get into a little bit more later in our San Diego Comic-Con discussion. But he also referred to the Wonder Man series, which just referring to that was news in itself because that confirmed that was happening for the first time officially. But also referred to it as extremely different, which feels sort of cliche at this point in the MCU. Like we've gone through a bunch of different genres and it's hard to imagine how many different ways they can go at this point. But I'm curious to know what that series looks like when we finally get to it.
Yeah, like you said, that was one that hadn't really been formally announced, just in the trade. So nice to know that it is going forward, because there's been a little bit of upheaval in the MCU recently in terms of different projects.
Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned Blade, so that's probably the biggest one.
Well, maybe there's another project that got a new title and a star.
Well, yeah, that's a whole different story. But we also got a trailer for Agatha All Along, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this one. So I referenced projects changing names quite a few times. Agatha All Along, this I think was the 5th name for that series.
I think 5 is being conservative.
It might be, yeah. But the trailer came out, and I thought it looked great. I'm curious what you thought.
Yeah, it starts off with kind of that procedural. I think Marshall compared it to Mayor of Easttown, which I think is accurate. And both shows had Evan Peters, so there's that. But no, it definitely looks a little bit more. I wouldn't even say horror influence, but there's like kind of elements of that, like a little bit more serious.
Yeah, it looks like a little bit of a horror comedy. Like there's definitely a comedic angle to it, but they showed some stuff that I was like, whoa, I did not expect to see that from Marvel, especially in the trailer for the series. There's like a demonic possession scene going on. And again, there's a comedic slant to it, but it's stuff like visuals that you would not expect to see on Disney Plus. So I'm curious to see how far that show goes. I love it. I'm fully on board with this horror comedy angle. And I really am looking forward to it. And by the way, September 18th. So that's right around the corner. So we won't have too long to wait for another Marvel project.
Yes, that means our show is coming back.
Yeah, I think so.
You have not seen The Last of Us.
No, this is episode 88. We are creeping very slowly up to 100 episodes. So,
well, Agatha will probably have 8 episodes or so that'll get us.
Episode 100 might be with like Fantastic Four next year, but we'll get there. Continuing the Disney Plus news, we did find out that What If will have 3 seasons and it will end after the 3rd season. So, we have one more season coming up for that. We also got the return. I think unexpected return of an animated series on Hulu, and that was Hit Monkey. Season 2 debuted just a few weeks ago. Have you watched that show at all, Kyle?
I haven't. Should I?
It's definitely different. It is an ultra violent animated series, which normally I don't love, but again, it has a comedic slant to it. Like, it's definitely a comedy first. And season 2 picks up. If you like season 1, you're gonna like season 2. So you can check out my full review on laughingplace.com right now.
I saw it's got some guest stars that I was interested in, like Leslie Jones and some others that I recognize the names of. Because Benji did an interview with one of the co-creators of the show, which you can read on Laughing Place. So I learned a little bit about season 2 from that.
Yeah, it's a great cast too. Jason Sudeikis stars as Bryce, and Fred Tatasciore, who's just becoming a voiceover or a voice acting legend, really. So he's the voice of Monkey, which, title character doesn't really have a more creative name than that. But we also got a trailer for Captain America Brave New World. Loved it. So this one it feels weird because I guess I'm less excited for this movie because it doesn't feel like it is the big expansive MCU movie that's going to connect everything, although it now seems like maybe it will be. But it does feel like what could be the best movie in the MCU in a while, because it has those Winter Soldier vibes. So I'm curious if you felt the same way.
Totally. And they kind of teased that sort of political thriller aspect of it. And you definitely get that from the way it's edited to, just kind of the idea of it, which feels kind of familiar. Like, hey, let's like Civil War too. It's like, hey, what if, you want to work with us, but what if we disagree about how this is going to go? Yeah. And then you also kind of have that Manchurian Candidate aspect with, Isaiah. Yeah. And to your point, like, this isn't going to bring everything together, but it is nice to kind of see these characters that we met. Because a lot of the characters we've met in the past few years, we don't know when they're coming back in any capacity, like Moon Knight or, Agatha. Yeah, we know that one. But so it's kind of nice to have some continuation and see, like the new Falcon will be in this, and Red Hulk.
Yeah.
Just, we get a whole new cycle of grumpy Harrison Ford ahead of us.
Yeah, he's had some really fun interviews already coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, but we will talk more about this movie.
I feel like he plays into it. Like, he knows that everyone knows he's like the cantankerous, I'm just doing this for the money. So he's just gonna, if you're fine with that, then why would you do anything else?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and we all love it anyway. So plus Harrison Ford can do no wrong at this point, right? Like, it's Harrison Ford.
Disney legend elect Harrison Ford.
Couple more pieces of news here before we jump into San Diego Comic-Con. Kevin Feige got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. Not really much to break down there, just well-deserved. Deadpool and Wolverine debuted in Avengers Campus. Were you surprised by this?
Not really. I mean, maybe a little. I guess I am surprised the level that they did, because they set up like the story time with Deadpool, which I think is a really clever idea. And I've seen some of those. And what's funny is everyone's making comparisons how Deadpool's kind of the new Genie, which of course the show is right outside of where Aladdin used to play, the Hyperion Theater. But we saw already plenty of updates. Like, there's a B mode show, first of all, because apparently Wolverine gets some days off. And so then you get Deadpool by himself. And Mike went and saw the show like a couple days after Comic-Con, and he was already making jokes about RDJ playing Dr. Doom. Spoiler for our next news segment. But it's been really cool. I haven't seen the other. I know he also appears like in the campus itself, and then also kind of pops up in the Guardian show sometimes. But the story time element was definitely not something I foresaw, and I think is a cool addition.
Yeah, no, totally agree. I think they're doing a really great job with the character in the parks. It is like, the movies have made Deadpool an R-rated character, but he pushes the envelope in the comics, but he still fits in. There's the team ups, there's all of that. So there was ways to get around it, and I think they did a nice job of that.
Have you seen the difference between, besides speaking French, the American version and the French version of Deadpool?
I did see his like intro when he comes out to the song from Deadpool 2, which was incredible in Paris.
I haven't seen that, but no. So one of the changes that you'll notice from screen too is at Avengers Campus, instead of having guns in his holsters, he has chimichangas, and in Paris he has baguettes.
Oh, that's funny. I like that. And then our last bit of news here, sort of multi-layer piece of news here. We got a lot of Marvel news for the Disney Destiny. Like I said, the new Disney Cruise Line ship coming next year. We have another one coming this year, the Treasure. Destiny will follow that. And I'll run through these bits.
Not to be confused with the Adventure, which is going to Singapore.
Right. So the Disney Destiny, the Stern character for the first time ever will be a Marvel character. It'll be Spider-Man as he is webbing up some spider bots, which is really cool. The Grand Hall, the main atrium as you walk onto the ship, will be Wakanda themed with a Black Panther statue. Looks amazing. And then on that same deck down the hall,
right?
T'Challa specifically, yes. At least that's what the artwork shows. I would assume that is accurate.
Not Shuri.
Not Shuri.
As far as we know.
Right, exactly. We also know that what is Luna on the Disney Wish is going to be Saga, and will have Wakandan architecture to it, which is really cool. The Sanctum will be the name of one of the bars. I believe this is the one taking the spot of the Bayou on the Wish, sort of the centrally located one that'll be outside of what will be the Haunted Mansion parlor on the Destiny.
I've totally been on a ship. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So yeah, a Sanctum Sanctorum themed bar sounds really, really cool. The Tower Suite will be an Iron Man theme, and I really hope they just call it Stark Tower or Stark Tower Suite, something like that. I
could totally see, like, in that first Iron Man, his home has that kind of like spirally staircase, so that would totally fit into the Tower Suite there.
Yeah, absolutely. And then last piece, the Worlds of Marvel restaurant, as we sort of alluded to earlier, on Disney Destiny, it will be the Guardians of the Galaxy show. So awesome. I can't wait. I was already excited for a new Disney cruise ship. You throw all these Marvel elements to it.
You wanted more?
So yeah, anything else on that news before we jump into San Diego Comic-Con, Kyle?
I think we can jump to Comic-Con.
All right. So obviously the big thing from Comic-Con was Hall H. Before that, I got two pieces from San Diego Comic-Con I want to talk about. First, and I was pleasantly surprised and really very surprised with the reaction we got to our coverage of the new Marvel Rivals game. People were really, really into that, and I'm excited for it. The game looks awesome. We actually got to demo it at the Marvel booth at San Diego Comic-Con. If you're not familiar, Marvel Rivals is a team-up shooter type of game, but with Marvel characters. And they have a pretty vast library of characters to choose from, both playable and non-playable. So there was a panel. They revealed the voice cast for the game, which includes some familiar faces. If you're a fan of Marvel gaming, Yuri Lowenthal, the voice of Marvel's Spider-Man, Nolan North, the voice of Iron Man in Marvel's Avengers, and quite a few other. Fred Tatasciore is actually voices, I believe, the Hulk in the game too. So there's a lot of familiar faces there.
Is Ross, whatever his name is he in it?
I don't know Ross.
Isn't there a Ross? Like a guy who's like the fill-in voice for all, like half of the Avengers.
Oh, like Ross Marquand. Oh no, he is not. But Josh Keaton, who is the voice of Steve Rogers in What If, is. Okay. So he will be in the game. So yeah, there are, like I said, a lot of familiar names on that voice cast. They also revealed some exciting playable characters, including Thor, who surprisingly was not revealed prior to San Diego Comic-Con. But we also got Jeff the Land Shark as a playable character, and now he will live forever on my set back there.
At least something went your way.
Right. Yeah, Jeff the Land Shark, playable character in Marvel Rivals. That I never. This character has blown up. I feel like he debuted a while ago, but he kind of really rose in popularity in the last couple of years, and now he's playable in a video game. It took so many other characters so long to get to that point. And
like a real game too, not just like a mobile game.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So many mobile game developers just unsubscribed from our podcast. Thanks.
No, I'm just saying, like, you could make a Jeff game easy, but
that's one of our big demos is mobile game developers for this podcast. So yeah, Marvel Rivals looks really cool. They don't have a date for it just yet, but there is a beta out that you can get on Steam, on PlayStation 5, and all your platforms. So
It doesn't matter if
Um,
they announce a date; they'll just delay it anyway. So we might as well wait.
yeah, it's a video game. Video games in general just get delayed, but yeah, it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. I was terrible at it, but I'm looking forward to playing it some more.
You got to play it on preview night.
I did. Yeah, Jeremiah and I both got to play it on preview night, and we were Venom and jumping into the battle and just getting immediately killed by like Penny Parker or like whatever other obscure like small character you could see. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Did it yell "Century" at you over and over?
It did not. I don't even know the name of that game that Kyle is referencing, but it's in my X-Men arcade cabinet that Kyle was just getting crushed on.
I was doing really well up until that one.
Up until that point, yeah.
I beat him once, and I said, "That's good. I did it."
There was one other thing I want to talk about outside of Hall H, and that is the Deadpool and Wolverine drone show. This was a surprise show that they did on Thursday night after that, what was essentially a surprise Deadpool and Wolverine panel. So they showed the movie during that Deadpool and Wolverine panel. The cast came out and talked. And then outside, they did a whole Deadpool and Wolverine drone show over Petco Park. I did not get to see it in person because I was off in a movie theater watching the movie, so I could not see it. But we do have video of it on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. Check it out. It is unbelievable. So the biggest thing that stands out to me, because the pictures of this drone show looked amazing. And so I wanted to know, what are the comparisons to other drone shows? So Dreams That Soar here at Disney Springs in Walt Disney World uses roughly 800 drones. This drone show used 2,400 drones, three times the amount. So it was, you see the characters come up and they are like 3-dimensional and they look awesome. It's the most impressive drone show I've seen, which is saying a lot because they've been popping up everywhere these days. So
they really have. And I think that's going to continue. And I'm glad people are still, I mean, I know the novelty is going to wear off, but they do look so cool. Like,
yeah,
I'm personally ready for them to. I'm over fireworks. We can move to drones. It's okay. You can have like a little bit of pyro in it, but
sure. Yeah, and this one did.
Let's just transition.
This one used that technology that Jeremiah told me that they use this in Disneyland Paris. I have not watched that show in its entirety because I was hoping to get over there for it, but didn't happen. But so the drones themselves shoot off pyro, which is so impressive, so cool.
Until you see Captain America: Brave New World, and then maybe you'll be a little bit more frightened of such things. But
sure. Yeah, that's a good point. But yeah, this show looked so good. Again, you can check out the full show on the Laughing Place YouTube channel. And I'll credit Mike C on our team who shot the video, saying that drone show had a post-credit scene. So it was Deadpool and Wolverine focus, and then we got a little bit more, maybe a little Fantastic Four fun in there. So again, you can check out the full video on,
because nobody expected they'd be talking about Fantastic Four in Hall H during the Marvel panel.
Right. Yeah, Rebecca comments, love drones, especially now they have fire. That blew my mind. I could not, like, it seems like there's too many variables for that to work, but it does. So
capsing fire just reminds me of that Hardee's commercial with David Koechner, where he's like, "Traitor, burgers need fire."
I don't know if I know this commercial.
It's fantastic. I'll send it to you.
Okay.
It was on Free. How you see a commercial like 100 times over the course of 2 months and then never again, but it's already burned into your brain.
Yeah, no, I 100% know what you're talking about. There's quite a few that we can have a conversation about after we're done recording here. Let's jump into Hall H. And obviously there was a lot of news to come out of Hall H. I will preface this conversation with the fact that I did not get into Hall H. So I did not get
Neither did I.
Well, Kyle did not either, which is 100% fair. But I did wait for 2 hours outside of Hall H, hoping to get in. I kind of hoping against all odds, kind of knowing I wasn't going to. But what else was I doing with that time anyway?
Learning about X-Men.
Yes, well, yeah, I did do that too. I did plenty of that, but I should mention there's a lot of comics and other merchandise news that came out of San Diego Comic-Con for Marvel. We're not going to talk about all of it. You can read all about it on
laughingplace.com/tag/SDCC. That'll probably do it.
Yeah, it should get you there.
Or maybe another dash and then 2024.
Yeah, fair. Otherwise, you're going to get, it'll start with the 2024 stuff anyway. But all that to say, I did not get to see the footage that we will talk a little bit about. So this is all coming from Laughing Place's coverage. So take it with a little grain of salt, but this is the news that came out of Hall H. So they basically broke it down to talking about 5 movies, but we really didn't get much about Thunderbolts. They brought the cast out. They had
we got the Walmart logo.
We got the Walmart logo. Kevin Feige debuted a new Thunderbolts hat that is just a yellow asterisk that resembles the Walmart logo, as Kyle said. But yeah, so they brought the cast out. David Harbour came out in full Red Guardian costume, which was fantastic. The whole panel opened with a chorus of Deadpools too, which seemed pretty cool.
Yeah, like a prayer.
Yeah. So that was really fun. But all the news really was focused on 4 different movies, kind of 3. I mean, 2 of them kind of blend into one. But we'll start with Captain America: Brave New World. So we already talked about the trailer. Think the movie looks great. However, one of the things that we saw in that trailer was Giancarlo Esposito, who seems to be the villain of the film, at least a villain of the film. We did not know at the time who his character was. It was revealed during this panel that he is going to be playing Sidewinder, the leader of the Serpent Society. So that's pretty cool. Kyle, I know you have a relationship with the Serpent Society title, at least.
I do, yeah, because I was at the Marvel Phase 3 announcement at the El Capitan in whatever year that was, and they did the fake out. So the first one, like, we already announced this one, but the title is Captain America: Serpent Society, and Kevin moved on. And then they showed a clip from, I think it must have been Age of Ultron at that point.
Yeah.
Of Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. And he's like, you know what? I like that dynamic. And so then they did a whole bit and they're like, we're going to title it Captain America: Civil War instead. And then the 2 of them came out. So yes, I'm familiar with Serpent Society just as a decoy title for the 3rd Captain America film.
Yeah. And go figure, all these years later, the next Captain America film is focused on the Serpent Society, at least to some extent. So I like that came full circle. So, I've never been a big fan of the Serpent Society. They've always been, I mean, at least in the comic books, they're kind of cheesy. They're all like snake themed and all have snake like bodies, or not all, but a lot of them have like snake like bodies, which is weird. They've done a better job with these characters in live action. They had Mahershala Ali played Cottonmouth in the Luke Cage series on Netflix. That was awesome. They've kind of turned them into a more accurate, more real world type of villain. Mahershala was or Cottonmouth, I should say, was a gangster in Luke Cage. Now, Sidewinder seems to be
doesn't seem to be a snake, is what you're saying.
He seems to be human. We'll go with that. So yeah, he and I love Giancarlo Esposito. The casting is fantastic.
I assume Serpent Society predates Kill Bill, right?
Yes. Yeah, I can pretty confidently say yes. Yeah.
Because yeah, Kill Bill, they all have like snake themed names and stuff too. So it's just kind of interesting that there's that connection.
Yeah. Yeah. The Serpent Society, at least the core members of it, because it's one of those teams where it's like there's like 5 members, and then there's like a list of 30 that have appeared at some point or another. But at least the core members of it go back fairly far, definitely before Kill Bill. So attendees in Hall H got to see the first few minutes of the film. And what I found to be interesting is that somehow included the debut of the Red Hulk and like the transformation.
So I wondered about that, but it could have been one of those things where they show you like the opening, but then do like a sizzle reel.
Yeah, it might have been something like that, because that I don't see, us being reacquainted with Ross being played by a new actor with a whole new look. He's now the president, and then you see him become Red Hulk all within the first few minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I don't see that either. Oh, by the way, I know you're a big fan of that Rhodey's entrance in Iron Man 2, where he says, I'm here, let's just move on. Do you appreciate still getting used to the new look and then be like, oh yeah, I need to shave my mustache?
Yeah, 100%. I love that line from Harrison Ford. Just I either had to lose the mustache or lose the election. Like, that's not really what we were talking about, but no, I love it. Yeah, really, really well played. So yeah, we as we talked about, we meet General Ross, who is now President Ross, which we knew from a while ago. So it wasn't like that was any big new plot point or anything like that. But from what I've heard, he talks about finally addresses the first person in the MCU to address the giant celestial sticking out of the ocean that we saw happen in Eternals, and he refers to it as Celestial Island Summit. So there's a stretch in the Avengers comics where their new base of operations is Avengers Mountain, and is actually just the head of a celestial coming out of Earth. I am wondering if we are working towards that. Be pretty interesting. But the big thing that really came out of that was that they are harvesting a metal from this celestial, and they referred to it as adamantium. That would be the metal that makes up the skeleton of Wolverine. So a way to introduce adamantium into the MCU there. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll mention more about that later.
Oh,
but
okay. All right. Interesting. My like nerd nitpicky issue with it is that adamantium is supposed to be an alloy that includes vibranium. So I wonder if maybe they'll work that in somehow. It shouldn't be like I don't know if you can call that a naturally occurring metal if it's coming from a celestial, but I guess he was of Earth, right? So it is technically then. But
they've changed lots of stuff in the MCU. So
yeah.
if you're gonna get hung up on the composition of a fake metal, then
no, you're absolutely right about that. 100%. But yeah, that is my only nitpicky issue with it. So yeah, that was the news that we got on Captain America: Brave New World, February 14th next year. I'm excited for it. It feels like it's a ways off. We have a little bit of a wait for that film, but definitely excited for it. I have high hopes for it now. I wasn't all that excited for it before, but now it looks like it's one of the best movies that Marvel has coming up.
Hope so.
Yeah. So let's talk about the next movie, which is The Fantastic Four, which has gone through, I think it was Fantastic Four and then The Fantastic Four and now The Fantastic Four First Steps. How do you feel about that title?
I mean, I guess it's better than like 6 months or Baby's First Christmas. Well, but no, I don't. I think it makes sense because it's the first family. It's set in the past, right?
Yes. So that is a thing that we got from the Marvel podcast. Actually, I'll go back to that news point we talked about. Kevin Feige in his interview revealed that the Fantastic Four film was going to be taking place not only back in the 1960s, but also in an alternate universe. We saw the timeline, or not the timeline, the skyline in the background of the artwork they released, and it is not the New York that we know. So it is a different universe.
The New York that never was and never will be. Always was and never will be. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Or the other way around. Whatever.
Yeah. Whatever it was that Feige said in his cryptic messages.
Oh, I was referencing Hollywood Studio or MGM Studios, but
that too. Yeah. But I want to go back to your point about the title. By the way, I am 100% looking forward to the Disney Plus special Fantastic Four Baby's First Christmas. But the First Steps,
that was actually their follow-up to their first charting single. So right, it made sense. Yeah, everyone had to do a Christmas song in the 60s.
Yeah. That would be funny, actually, if you see like Reed Richards has a song that then charts, and yeah. But the title is interesting. I don't love it. I wish they would just stuck with the Fantastic Four. First Steps, though, is interesting because it takes you down a lot of roads. Like your mind obviously went right to, a baby, and a child walking. Reed and Sue do have children. Franklin Richards being the oldest, and he is a very powerful mutant, actually, who has the ability to create and jump between universes. So that would be an interesting character to introduce if that is what they're doing with this title. It's also, again, set in the 60s. Fantastic Four, known for space travel. So, First Steps on the Moon could be going down that road. So a lot of different ways they can go with it. It's making Marvel fans talk. I'll give them that.
As someone annoyed by having to put parentheses with dates after movie titles, I don't mind there being a subtitle.
It's fair. Okay. So we did get a few other bits of news from this panel. One being that Michael Giacchino is going to be composing the score for this movie, which I love. Mike
took issue with this.
Did he?
He doesn't think that you should be able to score both Fantastic Four and The Incredibles.
Oh, and not throw Spider-Man into that mix too?
Well, because like Fantastic Four and The Incredibles are basically the same thing. Yeah.
No, that's fair. But also, that's sort of his thing now. His family-friendly superheroes. That's his genre that he's working in. And then he goes and makes his directorial debut with a horror superhero. But So I already mentioned that the Fantastic Four First Steps will be set in an alternate universe in the 60s. They did show footage for this film, and again, didn't see it. I've seen a couple clips here and there. The big thing that came out of it, from what I could tell, was that we got a peek at Galactus, and looked pretty cool. I'm really interested to see how they handle this. I already know, just from the little image that I saw, that they will have done a better job with this character than the Fox Fantastic Four franchise did when it was a cloud. So yeah, I'm interested to see how they handle Galactus. They also had a fantastic car drive across the stage, levitate across the stage, which is cool. Fly, yeah. Sure, we can go with that. So yeah, that was cool to introduce, and it's fun that it does seem like they're kind of going with the sort of cartoonish vibe for this movie, and I'm curious to see where that goes and how that translates into the MCU, because we know we're going to see the Fantastic Four, specifically in 2 more films that we're going to talk about here. And are they going to bring that cartoonish, like old school superhero serial type of thing to the larger MCU, and how will that mesh? I'm curious to see how that goes. So
you're wondering if we're getting if they're going to go somehow from Superman Returns to Superman Man of Steel.
yeah. That would be. I'm curious to see how they handle that, because that actually is a really good analogy for it, because that kind of does feel like the way that they're going. And then we know there, by the way, July 25th, 2025, that is when the Fantastic Four First Steps will be hitting theaters. And there's a little bit of a piece of news that Kyle already mentioned earlier, that bridges the gap between that film and the next 2, at least we hope. And that is that Robert Downey Jr. was revealed to be playing Dr. Doom in the MCU. So,
and of course, the bros are coming back.
Oh yeah, I was going to get to that as we get into the Avengers films. But you would hope, at least, I know I do, that Dr. Doom is going to make an appearance in the Fantastic Four first, because I don't,
at least in a post-credits scene.
Yeah, something to set the character up, because otherwise you're jumping right into an Avengers film where he is the primary antagonist, and that will take us to our discussion of Avengers Doomsday, which that title. And they dropped that title. I was like, why are we bringing a DC villain into the MCU? Oh, Dr. Doom. And this is his day, I guess. All right. So
every Doom gets its day.
Dr. Doom and the no good, terrible, very bad day. That I don't know if I got that title right, by the way.
Alexander and the no horrible. Now I messed it up. I used to know it off the back of my head. Back of my head, yes.
So yeah, Avengers Doomsday is the new title for Avengers, the Kang Dynasty. They have done what we talked about months ago, which was they had that whole summit meeting. They talked about replacing Kang with Dr. Doom. Seems like that's where we're going. I'm curious to see if they explain away the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or if they just hope that people forget about it, because most people have forgotten about that movie. So
they just squash it like an ant.
There you go. Yeah, that might be what happens. So yeah, it is Avengers Doomsday. Doom is the primary antagonist. And like you said, the Russo brothers are returning to direct both this and Avengers Secret Wars. So love that. Totally trust the Russos to handle these Avengers films. They've proven that they absolutely can. So
Downey's in this.
So yeah, let's talk about those 2 big returns. What are your thoughts on Robert Downey Jr. and the Russos?
I mean, I'm very excited for the Russos. It was something that we got a heads up about in the trades a little bit beforehand. And we've also always known that they had interest in Secret Wars specifically. And that's going to be the 6th movie, the one that follows Doomsday. It is interesting that it's going to be co-produced by their company, Agbo, which, figure has to be a contractual thing, because that's what they're doing now. So They wouldn't want to leave that to come back to Marvel. So that's kind of cool. I don't know what that means in terms of production, but it is notable. As far as Downey, I don't know what to expect. Like, it almost feels like it could be like a fake out. I don't think that it's a pretty big gamble to do that. I don't know, but I think it's interesting, at least. It gives us something to talk about, and then we can all argue about it for 2 years, and then it'll come out, and then we'll actually get to form real opinions instead of just
Right.
blowing hot
Yeah.
air.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll be honest, had the Russos not been involved, because I fully trust the Russos to do a good job with this movie. I think I would have really been against the Robert Downey Jr. casting, and I'm still kind of on the fence about it, because like you said, we'll form a real opinion when the movie comes out. But for now, this is Doctor Doom, right? Like, this is an iconic Marvel villain, and to have it, I'm so curious to see, are they going to address this? Is he Tony Stark? Is he going to look familiar to the other characters around him? If he is, and that is actually 616 Doom, that is completely undercutting the importance of the character. My thought and my hope is that this is an alternate reality Doom. This is probably the Doom from the Fantastic Four First Steps, that universe, who then follows them in to eventually create the Battle World and Secret Wars and all of that. So that's where I'm hoping they go. Deadpool has different thoughts on the multiverse, but for now we're sticking with it. I don't know
if it was just a misspeak, but when one of the Russos announced it, he talked about the possibilities of the Marvel multi-universe instead of multiverse. I don't know if that was intentional, but I've watched our clip enough to be like, was that just a misspeak or an intentional differentiation?
Well, and I thought you were going to go with a different example, actually, because when they introduced Dr. Doom, they said only one person could play Victor Von Doom, and then he took off the mask.
It also feels like, having watched the Taika Waititi thing enough, there's only one person that could play this role. It feels like, extra hype, and maybe to make their talent feel good. So I don't know whether you're saying I don't know whether to take that as he can only play it because this is a variant of Tony Stark and it just makes sense, or he's the best actor in the world, so we need to hype up his ego, and that's why he's the only person that could play this complex role.
Right. No, I'm definitely referencing the former. I just wish he had said only one person could play Dr. Doom and not Victor Von Doom, because I'm hoping this is Tony Stark as Dr. Doom and not actually Victor Von Doom. Now, so again, I hope that it is an alternate reality. There are comics that set the precedent for Tony Stark being Dr. Doom. That story does actually exist. So I'm hoping that's the road they're going down. There are full-on fan conspiracy theories out there that there actually is another Dr. Doom that has already been cast, and because Dr. Doom never takes his mask off, except when Tony Stark is Dr. Doom, or in other realities where his face never got scarred and all that. But the real Dr. Doom never takes his mask off, and so there are thoughts out there that the real Dr. Doom was standing right there next to him and wearing the mask the entire time, and whoever this star is. I don't subscribe to all of that.
I don't subscribe to all of that. I think the rest of the theory is perfect. Like I said, this could be like a fake out. But I don't think you fly an actor out there to stand next to.
I don't think Cillian Murphy was standing on the stage in a Doom costume the entire time. But imagine the moment you would get in Assembled on Disney Plus after we see Doomsday, and Cillian Murphy is like, "Yeah, I was out there on the stage." No, that would be again very unlikely. Don't expect that to happen, but would be a really awesome story. So yeah, that's where we're at with Doomsday and Secret Wars. We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of variables, a lot of different ways they can go. The only other bit of news we know is that, and I think we expected this anyway, but the Fantastic Four will appear in both Avengers films. So exciting. Again, they have the connection to Doctor Doom, so it makes sense that we'll see them there.
And they kept the release dates for now. I do not really expect that to stick, but currently 2026, May 2026 is the first one.
And I think they did, correct me if I'm wrong, but they didn't really specifically say the dates, did they? Because I think they just said May. Oh, they did? Okay.
They said see you in 2 years. Yeah, May. I think it's May 1st for the first one, and whatever for 2027. But those dates have been announced. Those have been on the books.
Exactly.
Kang.
Yeah, I just didn't hear that they said the specific dates. I knew they said
showed it on the screen after they.
Okay. Gotcha. So yeah, that was the big news out of Hall H. Obviously, the big reveal. You've probably seen it 100 different times on TikTok and Twitter. Just RDJ taking the mask off,
including our Instagram and
absolutely. So yeah, that was exciting. Again, I still don't love the casting right now, but we'll see where they go with it. Anything else on Hall H, Kyle, before we jump into our movie?
Let's get into the movie.
Let's get into the movie. We are 45 minutes in and haven't even touched Deadpool and Wolverine, which has a lot of points to talk about. First off, what were your thoughts? As someone who didn't see Deadpool 2 until like a few weeks ago. Actually, let's get that banner up there. So if you're watching live, as long as that banner is up there, we are going to be discussing spoilers for Deadpool and Wolverine. Kyle, what did you think about the movie?
I thought it was a lot of fun. I'm glad going in. So I saw it on the Monday after it opened. I had one thing spoiled for me by Variety. And it's not the thing that I necessarily cared the most about, but I will say it was the one that Becca had the biggest reaction to, more just like surprise. Because there's other things like that I forgot that I knew when they happened. Like, oh yeah, Jen Garner, I knew about that. We wrote about that. It was I don't know if I want to say stressful. I think watching Doctor Strange was more stressful for me. But I'm not a big fan of all the gore, but I did feel like this was actually pretty like predictable in terms of when those fights were going to happen. There was only like a handful of them.
Yeah.
So I kind of knew what was coming, and especially one of them I knew was I saw a little bit of something ahead of time. Probably the grossest moment in the movie.
I wonder if we're talking about, if we're thinking of the same one on that topic.
We'll see. But yeah, no, I thought it was fun. I don't know how it's going to hold up on repeat viewings for most people. I'm not necessarily like looking forward. I don't feel a need to see it again, but I enjoyed it. I will say Becca laughed throughout. I don't know if I've ever heard her laugh so much in a movie. So yeah, I'm really glad that we went to go see it, and in a timely manner. I experienced it, and now I'm good.
Well, it's funny you say that because Jess and I actually just bought tickets to go watch it again tomorrow morning. So really excited to see it for a second time. It was one of those movies that, and we had different experiences too. I don't know what your theater was like. Also, did you see it at Alamo Drafthouse?
I saw it at Alamo. I will say it was a little bit, I mean, there was no like cheering or anything, but like a lot of laughter, full theater. It wasn't quite as reserved. Like I've said, like one of my regrets about Endgame is seeing it at Alamo, just because everyone is a little bit more reserved because you're supposed to be quiet. So I didn't get those big cheers and stuff. I felt like this was a little bit more of a communal enjoyment of it.
Yeah. No, I had a very different experience. I saw it at an opening night in an AMC in San Diego while San Diego Comic-Con was going on. So it was a noisy crowd, respectfully. It was all in reaction to the movie. There were no people on their phones and things like that, which was really nice. But yeah, I definitely missed quite a few jokes, quite a few Easter eggs, things like that because of that. So I definitely want to go see it a second time. In regards to the gore, I thought they actually did a pretty decent job. There were a couple of moments that were pretty gross. One of them actually, I don't even think would qualify as gore. And that, and to me, was the grossest moment of the movie. But we're probably thinking about two different moments. So I thought they did a good job.
Well, just tell me.
Of that. Well, okay. So the moment you're thinking of, I assume, is Johnny Storm.
No, actually, I would say, well, I also was looking away, so I don't know how bad it really was, but nice guy Deadpool's head.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Okay. Yeah. There is that one too. For me, it was a moment. It was a fight between Deadpool and Wolverine where Wolverine broke Deadpool's arm and like did it like in a very graphic way. I actually had to look away for that one, but no. So the gore, I thought, aside from a couple brief moments, was very well handled, not too intense. The humor, I'm 100% with Becca because I was laughing throughout. Even like there were some heartfelt moments, but I found myself like still kind of chuckling about a joke from like 2 minutes prior. I will say, I think even not just Marvel movie, but this is one of the funniest movies to come out in theaters in several years. Like I don't remember laughing this hard at a movie probably since like, I don't know, a movie like Booksmart or something like that, which was probably like 5-6 years ago at this point. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this is one of the funniest movies, and you expect that with Ryan Reynolds. All right, so let's jump into the premise of the movie, which is really Deadpool being taken by the TVA and given the option to jump into the MCU because as a storm just opens up in Orlando right now. So hopefully I don't lose power anytime soon. We're going to keep going. But so Deadpool is told that the anchor being of his universe has died, and that means the death of his own his universe, which he takes to mean that is him, and he says he's just fine. And then Paradox from the TVA laughs in his face and tells him, no, it was Logan, which I have questions about Logan dying in that universe and that whole continuity, but we can get to that. So yeah, that kind of sets.
We're not going to figure it out.
We're not going to figure it out. You're right. But the whole premise is that he needs to get a Logan for his universe to keep his universe alive, regardless of whether or not the TVA actually will allow that. But so that brings us to a montage of just comic Easter egg after comic Easter egg as Deadpool multiverse hops looking for a different Wolverine. Did any of these moments stand out to you? Anything in particular?
I like Short King Wolverine.
Yeah. I love that name, Short King Wolverine.
I also know like the poker playing like white tuxedo one.
Yeah, we saw him in the trailer. That was Patch.
Okay. I didn't necessarily get, I guess there's been rumors about like Henry Cavill. Is that the bit? Okay.
Yeah, the Cavalrine, as he refers to him.
Yeah.
So there were a few other really cool moments. The cover of Uncanny X-Men number 251, Wolverine, sort of an iconic image, him being hung up on that X in the like sea of skulls. So that was cool to see that image in there. And it was a funny moment with Deadpool. Like it's not really the vibe we're going for. So yeah, love that. The comic accurate height Wolverine, which comic accurate would be 5'3". I think he was a little bit shorter than that, but really funny moment. The John Byrne brown and yellow costume, which, I mean, this guy has been on my desk thanks to Hasbro for a number of years. So loved seeing that. And then Deadpool saying, don't you fight a Wolverine or fight a Hulk in this costume? And then there's the Hulk. Deadpool saying, I'm Marvel Jesus, you puny creature. And straight out of Avengers, that whole Loki scene. So that was really cool. And that was, by the way, that references the comic, The Incredible Hulk number 180, which was Wolverine's debut when he fought the Hulk. So pretty cool. And then the black and red costume that Wolverine is in, where he's like full on berserker Wolverine and has the crazy like 80s hair metal hair. That was the Age of Apocalypse storyline. So they pulled that suit and look out of there, which was awesome. And this is a movie we could spend all day just breaking down like comic Easter eggs and things like that. But there were a lot of really cool moments like that. Let's talk about Cassandra Nova, the villain of the movie, which I guess a villain of the movie, because really Paradox and TVA were kind of the big bads, I guess. So Cassandra, what were your thoughts on her? She was cool and a little creepy.
Creepy, yeah. Another maybe the grossest power we've seen in the MCU. But yeah, no, I thought it was interesting. Her whole storyline and look and all of that. I liked her overall, but yeah,
Yeah. That the hand in the head thing, that's comic accurate too. They took that right out of the comics, which was really cool and really well done. Like the visuals worked really well. And yeah, her story is dark and kind of creepy. And I was very happy with the way that they adapted her for the MCU.
That kind of like going into their head and kind of setting a scene. Also a little bit like Scarlet Witch.
Yeah. Just without the actual physical hand going in.
Yes.
All right, let's talk about the big thing that I think people are still mostly talking about with this movie, which is all the cameos. And we'll start with the big ones here. So we'll start with the one that I know you loved the most, which is of course Jon Favreau as Happy Hogan.
Of course, right up front, which I loved in the pitch meeting. They make a joke about that. Man, if that excited you, then you're gonna like it did excite me. I love Happy.
Yeah, no, it was really cool to see. That was definitely a surprise to me. Like you mentioned, we stay plugged in. We hear all the casting news. We knew about some of these surprises coming. Happy Hogan was not one of them. I did not realize he was going to be in this movie for a fantastic scene where Deadpool is auditioning to be an Avenger. There's all sorts of Easter eggs all throughout. One of my favorites is the picture of Tony Stark and Peter Parker, but Peter is blocked out because they can't show Spider-Man characters in a non-Sony related film. And blocked by the like Hasbro roleplay Iron Man mask that you see the kid wearing in Iron Man 2, sort of poking fun at the theory that like, oh, is that young kid a young Peter Parker? And then that created his, connection to Iron Man. So all sorts of Easter eggs like that are a lot of fun. But the main cameos here, the ones that we see, the characters we see in the void, and this one was handled as well as it could be, and that is Chris Evans reprising his role as Johnny Storm, of course, not as Steve Rogers. And you see him and you're like, that's Captain America. You hear the voice. He's going to say the thing. Deadpool says it with him. And then it's, instead of Avengers Assemble, it's Flame On. And he immediately gets taken out in really, really funny fashion. Yeah, that was so cool. And we don't have to quote it at all, but hilarious post-credit scene. All credit to Chris Evans on that one.
Even if I wanted to quote it, I don't think
there's a few choice words I could remember to quote, but I'm not going to do it on this podcast.
I think the word cinnamon was in there.
The word cinnamon is in there. Yeah, it was great to see Chris Evans in the MCU and great to see Johnny Storm in the MCU. So that was really cool. But we then meet the other. So basically, Cassandra Nova is like ruling the void with an iron fist, and then there's this resistance that included Johnny Storm until he got what I thought was going to be that gross moment that you were talking about, which is Cassandra Nova ripping off all of his skin and and leaving him to sort of collapse. But so we meet the rest of this resistance, which of course is Jennifer Garner, who plays Elektra, reprising her role from Daredevil and Elektra. The big one that really surprised me, because I never heard anything about this one showing up, which was Wesley Snipes reprising his role as Blade.
Yeah.
So cool.
And that was the really one that got spoiled for me from Variety, who put a nice spoiler warning in the first paragraph of their story, but headlined it with Wesley Snipes on returning as Blade.
Yeah, I think this movie, more than any other Marvel movie, they, mainstream media even was just like, all of these characters are in this movie, like right the day after the movie came out. And the reporting on San Diego Comic-Con didn't help, because I think the timing, and I think Marvel will avoid this in the future, is having a release on Comic-Con weekend, because then you get all of the cast out on the stage and media outlets are going to share those pictures. And so, a lot of things were spoiled for this movie.
It's just so funny because they talked about all the lengths they went through to keep things secret. And it's like, but then you spoil it on a Thursday night.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of speaking of things getting spoiled actually, this was for me Wednesday night. But one of the big surprises also was Channing Tatum. I want to say reprising his role as Gambit, but he never got to play Gambit, and they played that up perfectly. I thought they made a lot of really funny jokes about that. So he finally gets to play Gambit. Does just a terrible job, which is hilarious, and I think that was probably played up by him.
That's something that Becca and I were talking a lot about after the movie. It was like, so like he's doing it, like Deadpool keeps making fun of his accent and stuff, but like I know that this role means a lot to Channing Tatum. So like, was he supposed to be good? Like, just trying to find where that line is. Like, did you do this to fit into the movie, or so it's kind of an interesting paradox.
He is a really, really funny guy, and I think fully aware of the issues with casting him as Gambit, and I think he probably hammed that up as much as he possibly could. So he is definitely the kind of guy that's willing to laugh at himself. So I thought he did an awesome, terrible job.
As we're just kind of, hitting all sorts of different things, I do want to mention one of my favorite lines, which, first of all, we were right about Eliath, but he's like, from Loki season 1, episode 5.
Yeah, love that. And speaking of funny lines involving Gambit, he mumbles his Cajun accent, and Deadpool asks him, I'm sorry, who is your dialect coach? The Minions? So good. And then the last little surprise here involving the that resistance, which this one I knew about. We heard the casting, and then was kind of confirmed. Like Marvel straight up released video of it a couple days before the movie hit theaters, and that was Daphne Keane reprising her role from Logan as X-23. So
did you hear the story of why they ended up giving that away in that final trailer?
No, I did not.
So apparently Kevin said that she really wanted to go to the premiere, and they're like, well, we haven't announced you. That'd be a spoiler. So they put it in the final trailer so that she could come to the premiere, basically.
That's nice. I mean, I will say it worked for me 100%. Like I knew she was going to show up, and yet when she showed up, I kind of lost my breath, and I was like, I was quoting sort of the tagline of this movie that I won't repeat on the podcast. I was really fired up. Like I was ready to run through a wall for X23. I don't know, just and the way that she puts on the glasses later on and she joins the fight, so cool. I really hope we do get to see a lot more of her in the MCU in the future because I thought she's fantastic.
Well, she seems to be the ones that maybe lives.
Yeah. Well,
actually, we confirmed lives.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. And I have some thoughts on that as we get to the end of the movie too. But yeah, so really excited to see her back. I do have a question though.
Sure.
Regarding this character, which is why is she in the void? I think we have to assume this is an alternate universe because a version of her, because she is in Deadpool's universe, right? Like she's in that universe that is still existing and is marked for termination, basically, because Deadpool went and dug up the corpse of Logan, and that was the anchor being that died in his universe, and that's where she would be from. So there's no reason for her to be in the void. So we have to, I think she's different universe.
Or maybe there's a backstory there. Maybe she, before Deadpool, did something. Maybe she also tried to bring back Logan in some way or broke some sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. I've actually never seen Logan. Have I mentioned that?
Great movie, by the way. Highly recommend. Yeah, I'm curious to see if they ever address that because I have seen fans sort of taking note of that. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense that she be in the void unless she's from a different universe, which would then imply that there are two X-23s in that universe at the end. Whatever. We don't, again, like you said, we're not going to get the answer to it. We don't have to worry about it.
And speaking of not getting the answer to it, the thing I was talking about earlier is when we were reporting about the Fantastic Four and saying, Brave New World, it's saying that it's going to introduce adamantium into the MCU. And in reality, adamantium is brought up in this movie. So this is kind of the introduction of adamantium to the MCU in a way.
Yeah, no, that is very true. Yeah.
So that's why it's kind of like it introduces the origin where it's apparently a discovery of adamantium in the MCU as opposed to it being pulled in through a multiverse.
And a discovery in that timeline, whereas this adamantium is coming from other timelines. It's
Just go with it.
Let's jump back into the funny stuff because there are a couple of really funny jokes that I think kind of easily have slipped under the radar involving those other characters that we just talked about. Specifically, the first one is Elektra, and they talk about the other characters that were with them in the void and that have been killed off. Like they mentioned Magneto, they mention
Punisher.
Like,
which one? There's been like 5.
Yeah. But they also mentioned Daredevil, and Deadpool says, "Oh, Daredevil, I'm so sorry," and Elektra kind of goes, "That's fine," like just kind of shrugs it off. I think poking fun at two things. One, the fact that movie was terrible, and also the fact that Jennifer Garner and Ben Affleck, who played Daredevil, have been divorced. So that
they still co-parent.
Okay. Yeah. She's fine with it. That is one of two real world. That's one of two real world divorces they reference in this movie too, because they're also Hugh Jackman's, which is really funny. Where I think Deadpool says like he's afraid to take the shirt off ever since the divorce or something like that. Yeah. But the other one that I wanted to talk about was
the second act of The Music Man. That one also got me.
No, this one was more obvious, and I think people are talking about this one more. But Blade saying, "There's only ever been one Blade. There's only ever going to be one Blade," and Deadpool looks directly into the camera. Almost as I'm not sure what they were going for there. Is it him saying, "Well, there's going to be another Blade," or is it him saying, "Marvel, there might not be another Blade"?
I think we'll see how it goes, but no, I think it was more like who's going to tell him.
Yeah. Either way, it's hilarious. I'll run through. I'm not going to go through the whole cast, so apologies to these actors. But
sorry, Blind Al.
Well, I meant the cast of these cameos who came back as villains in the Void as well. So we got. I'm going to run through them quickly. Pyro, Sabretooth, Toad, Azazel, Lady Deathstrike, Juggernaut, Callisto, Bullseye, Psylocke, and the Russian. Some really obscure ones there, particularly the Russian, who was in, I think, one of the, I think it was one of the Thomas Jane Punisher movies. Yeah, there's some really obscure characters thrown in there, made for a really awesome fight. at the end with, Gambit and Elektra, characters that I didn't know I really wanted to see in these action sequences, and I was really fired up about it.
There is the part where Wolverine fights Sabretooth and Deadpool says, "Oh, your brother." And I thought they were going to make a joke about that. Like, he's not my brother. But that didn't happen.
No, but there were a lot of great moments with some of these characters and a lot of the returning cast. Some of these characters were played by completely new actors. I guess they just couldn't get Colin Farrell back to play Bullseye for 30 seconds. But so it was still cool to see those characters back in any capacity. One fun, I don't know if you call this an Easter egg, just a detail really. And shout out to New Rockstars who pointed this out that I didn't see it until I watched their video, but the sling ring. So they get the jump on Cassandra Nova. They get an advantageous position to go into, UFC talk, but they sort of leverage her into getting them back home. And she tells them, there was this silly magician that came through, and before I removed his skin, I took this trinket off of him, and it's a sling ring. So the sling ring, we're obviously talking about Doctor Strange. We see the sorcerers of Kamar-Taj use the sling rings to jump through space, right? They teleport all throughout Earth, but that's all. It's just through space. So this sling ring wouldn't have gotten them home from the void back to their universe. But if you look closely, the sling ring on either side of it, there is the time stone and the reality stone. So it's allowing them to jump through space and through different realities as well. So just a fun little, that's the sort of thing like Marvel's like, oh, nerds are going to pick up on this. We need to give a reason that this is going to work. So yeah, I love that little detail was thrown in there.
Nice.
Some more cameos. Let's run down the list. There were a whole bunch of Deadpools that showed up. And we got Lady Deadpool, played by Blake Lively. She never shows her face, but that is her voicing the character. Nathan Fillion is the voice of Headpool. Matthew McConaughey is the voice of Cowboy Deadpool. And then Kidpool and Babypool are actually played by the children of Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. So fun little cameos in there.
No Taylor Swift against what everyone.
Well, and all right. So I'm just going to jump to the end here because I had a list. I have two disappointments. We'll talk about the other one at the end. But my first one was just, I wanted the Taylor Swift cameo. I was really hoping for it, but just because a lot of people were talking about it leading up, so it would have been cool. The Wolverine costume.
I'll prefer Travis Kelce.
No, thank you.
I saw a kid in a Burrow jersey on the way here, by the way. I felt the need to tell you.
In Indianapolis. Interesting.
Yeah.
I guess you're close to that area.
Not really.
Anyway, so the Wolverine costume, I heard it referred to over the weekend at San Diego Comic-Con as the costume that made grown men weep. And so there was that. It was really cool to see him in that costume. And then even cooler when they're gearing up for this big fight against all the Deadpools, when he slow motion pulls on the cowl and finally goes full comic accurate, animation accurate, whatever you want, Wolverine. I did get a little bit of Batman vibes when every time he had the cowl on, he kind of was like a little bit mouth open to breathe the entire time, just kind of expecting it. I'm not wearing hockey pads kind of thing at some point. But yeah, it was really cool to see the full Wolverine costume come together finally. Yeah, so we get through the end. They defeat Cassandra Nova as she's trying to rip all reality apart and leave nothing but the void. They survive via very funny shirtless Hugh Jackman, Deadpool staring at his abs, surviving this unsurvivable situation. And then B-15 from Loki shows up.
I was excited to see her.
Yeah, it was cool to see her in this. And so she shows up. Figures out what's going on. They take care of Paradox, who is sort of the kind of hard to call him the brains behind the operation, but he was the one who set everything up. So B-15 shows up, and as things are wrapping up, Deadpool asks her for a favor. There were some friends in the void that he wants her to save, and we then see, as you alluded to, Laura X-23 is with them at the end, back in their universe, in home. So is Logan. Logan is right there, sort of implying that we're going to see Hugh Jackman return again.
Till he's 90.
Till he's 90. Disney's going to make him do this till he's 90. Yeah, and so we see...
That's what a lot of people were talking about with when the RDJ announcement came out, they're like, kill your 90.
So yeah, we know that Laura has survived now. She's gotten out of the void. I did hear, and I haven't been able to see it again to confirm yet. I'll try and keep an eye out for it tomorrow, that as Deadpool is in the TVA and you look in the screens in the background, I heard you can see Gambit walking down a street. So implying that he was also taken out of the void and is surviving somewhere, which would be hilarious. So we might, all of them might be surviving.
Speaking of the TVA screens, though, something we forgot, a running joke that we forgot about
is Thor.
Why was Thor crying?
Why was Thor crying? Yeah, Deadpool is looking at, which I have to ask you too. So Deadpool is looking at an alternate future in which he seems to be dying in Thor's arms and Thor is crying. Was that just edited footage from Thor 2, The Dark World, when he's holding Loki instead of Deadpool? Because it seems like it's that exact scenario.
It also looks like Matt Damon.
Yeah, that's true.
Matt Damon, the other one. But yeah, I don't know. It was funny. He's like, why is he crying?
Yeah, so I'm curious to see if that
he brings it up like 3 or 4 times throughout the movie.
So yeah, that brings us to the end. And I will say, I won't hold it out any longer, but my only other disappointment with this movie is that it didn't connect things as much as I had hoped. I was hoping to get some more answers tying the universe together finally. Now it seems like we'll probably have to wait for Brave New World to get to that point. But Benji did make a good point that it, they probably weren't going to do that major MCU plot point in the R-rated movie. Makes sense. Yeah. But it was hyped quite a bit as the most important MCU movie in a long time. So I don't know.
Box office wise, it was.
Well, that's definitely true. Yeah. Excuse me. I was a little disappointed by that, but overall, the movie was awesome.
Also, here's the thing. So the Green Day song is called Good Riddance. A lot of people call it Time of Your Life. It's called Good Riddance, parentheses, Time of Your Life. And it's been used sincerely in all sorts of montages. It's used in the, not the Seinfeld finale, but the special that they had beforehand. And so here it is perfectly used because it is sentimental to kind of say goodbye to the Fox Marvel universe.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also kind of make fun of it. So I thought this was 100% perfect song usage for once. Yeah. The only time the song's ever been used correctly.
Or at least we think we can give him the credit for it, but we don't know for sure. But it was also just cool to see that montage. That was fun. The way they pulled, I could have done without the Fantastic Four film that I still have not seen for good reason.
No, they just had the one thing, the one Johnny to Johnny, and that was nice.
No, they showed Miles Teller in there too.
Okay, fine.
But yeah, it was definitely cool. And then there was the post-credit scene that again we don't need to talk about, but was hilarious.
That was a good twist.
Yeah, was not expecting that for sure. But yeah, loved the movie. It was awesome. I can't wait to see Deadpool and Wolverine in the MCU going forward. To what extent we don't know just yet, but I'm sure they'll show up again at some point. And I can't wait for that. That's going to be really interesting to see Deadpool interact with some of these other characters.
Something I forgot to ask you real quick. Is there the backstory of the Wolverine that we meet in this movie where he, basically let everyone die? That's based on a real comic arc, or?
It could be based on a bunch of different comic arcs. There's so many different dystopian future X-Men stories that could be referencing. Days of Future Past is one of them, but then some of the X-Men have survived at that point too. Age of Apocalypse is another one that I mentioned earlier. Actually, the Cassandra Nova story in the comics, her main story, is very reminiscent of X-Men 97, the attack on Genosha, where a bunch of mutants were killed there. So that kind of plays off of that as well. So yeah, it's kind of an amalgamation of a bunch of different stories, I think. So yeah, that is going to do it. That was a lot to break down: San Diego Comic-Con and Deadpool and Wolverine and 2 months worth of news. We have, we're right on the heels of San Diego Comic-Con, and yet we have D23. Kyle, what's the full name?
The Ultimate Disney Fan Event.
There you go. Yeah. That's we'll just.
How could you forget such a catchy title?
I know. Yeah. Well, so D23, I'm just going to stick with that, is right around the corner, coming up next week. we figure we're probably going to get some Marvel news out of that. There's a studios panel and there's a parks panel, both of which could have some Marvel news for us to talk about. So as of right now, at least, we are planning to be back in a couple of weeks. So we won't have that long 2.5 month layoff. And then after that, we will have about a month and a half layoff probably. And then we'll get into Agatha all along. So not too long of a break after that. So yeah, like I said, hopefully we'll be back in 2 weeks to discuss some exciting Marvel news. We will hopefully, again, get back to our normal show layout as well. We'll get some, a fun draft and some how much is that cameo, and we'll have a guest join us as well. But we just had too much to discuss this week. Anything else, Kyle? I mean, I know we should say go ahead and follow us on X at Zzzax of Life Pod.
And I'll take this banner off. And also, if you're going to be at D23 UDFI, as the boss has been calling it, we're going to be there. Laughing Place will be there. Mac won't, but I'll be there. Yeah. Booth 500 in the Emporium, the D23 Emporium section of the show floor, near the AT&T Oasis, I believe. Somewhere in that vicinity. So yeah, come say hi to us. We're going to have new 25th anniversary fans because Laughing Place just celebrated its 25th anniversary yesterday. And so that's an ongoing celebration. Yeah. So yeah, come say hi to us. And we have channel memberships now. If you're on YouTube, you can get special streams and access to our Discord and other perks.
Cool. Yeah. Booth number 500. Nice round number. That's prime real estate right there.
Yeah. If we leave, then the entire thing collapses.
we're a keystone booth that's you can't remove us.
We're prime.
We're anchor beings at D23 this year,
and not just dragging everybody else down. The good anchor.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for checking out another episode of the Zzzax of Life podcast. And like I said, we will be back in 2 weeks. Thanks again, everyone. As I forget to play the outro. Bye.